This is from Premium Times. It was written by Philip Van Niekerk, and the title of this article is Trump's Ignorance About Nigeria, the Dangers of a Manufactured Christian Genocide, in quote. Trump's outburst exposes more than his ignorance of Africa. It reveals how easily American politics can be weaponized to distort African realities. Let's get into the article. I think it's very important. Like I said, I received this morning and I thought it was very apt. And it captures a lot of what I will say on this matter. 2 years ago, at a dinner in Washington for so-called African experts to brief an incoming congressman on the continent, the newly elected lawmaker began his contribution by declaring that one of Africa's most urgent crises was the Christian genocide in Nigeria. When asked to elaborate, he cited a single name, Nnamdi Kanu, as an example of a persecuted Christian languishing in prison. The table fell silent when someone gently explained that Kanu was not a pastor or missionary, but a Biafran secessionist leader, jailed for fomenting rebellion and inciting violence, not for his faith. I thought it was Judaists and Jew. Anyway, let's go on. That same combination of ignorance and emotional manipulation resurfaced this weekend when Donald Trump erupted on social media, threatening a fast, vicious, and sweet military invasion of Nigeria to stop a supposed genocide against Christians. The statement was as dangerous as it was absurd. If Trump had paused to consult the American military, which has spent years partnering quietly with Nigerian forces against Boko Haram and other insurgents, he might have learned that Nigeria's conflicts are real, but they are not religious wars. It is astonishing that the United States spends billions of dollars annually on intelligence gathering, yet its political leaders can still be so profoundly misinformed about Africa's most populous country. Yes, Christians in parts of Nigeria have suffered horrific violence from extremists, but so too have Muslims, often in even greater numbers. In Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa, the heart of the Boko Haram insurgency, most victims have been Muslim civilians murdered for rejecting the group's nihilistic ideology. Trump's eruption is a culmination of a years-long lobbying campaign in Washington. Listen to this about pay attention, please. Trump's eruption is a culmination of a years-long lobbying campaign in Washington by Biafran separatists, who have cleverly repackaged the secessionist grievance as a struggle to save persecuted Christians. Since 2019, Biafran groups have declared more than $1 million on lobbying in Washington through Mercury Public Affairs, BW Global Group, and Daniel Golden. They have found a receptive audience among Christian nationalists in the United States who see Nigeria through the prism of their own culture wars. Senator Ted Cruz has floated legislation invoking religious persecution. Congressman Riley Moore has made it a personal crusade. Even the comedian Bill Maher got in on the act. According to... even the comedian Bill Maher got in on the act, scolded the media for ignoring it. The strategy is familiar. It echoes the white genocide narrative promoted by far-right activists among Afrikaner farmers, a storyline that the Trump administration once enthusiastically adopted before quietly erasing it from the discourse. As with some Afrikaners, many Nigerian Igbos feel that they are the victims of discrimination, second-class citizens in a country that has never quite healed the wounds of the Biafran Civil War of 1967 to 1970. In Washington, the campaign deploys the same emotional triggers. A grain of truth wrapped in distortion, amplified through the machinery of American grievance politics. The grain of truth begins with the Boko Haram war launched in 2009 in northeastern Nigeria, which has killed tens of thousands across faith lines. It extends to the Middle Belt. Much of the violence is simple banditry and criminality. To reduce it to Christian genocide is not just inaccurate, it is dangerous. Nigeria is far from perfect, and its government has often handled these conflicts clumsily or brutally, but it is also a country of extraordinary coexistence. Roughly half Christian, half Muslim, and among the world's most religiously integrated societies. Its current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is a Muslim. His wife, Oluremi Tinubu, is a Christian pastor. Nigeria's cabinet, parliament, and cities are filled with people who cross those supposed lines every day without bloodshed. The idea that Abuja is colluding in the persecution of Christians is as false as it is incendiary. If Trump truly cared about Nigerian lives, he might know that the Tinubu government has been fighting, not aiding the extremists. often with US logistical and intelligence support. The Pentagon, better than anyone, knows that a military intervention in Nigeria would not be swift or clean. It would be catastrophic, plunging West Africa's fragile equilibrium into chaos at the very moment when Russian forces, now rebranded as the African Corps, are being pushed back in the Sahelian states, the epicenter of the jihadist insurgencies. But let me just read the final paragraph. The world needs partnership, not performative threats of invasion. It needs steady diplomacy, not social media outbursts dressed up as moral crusades. Trump's outbursts exposes more than his ignorance of Africa. It reveals how easily American domestic politics can be weaponized to distort African realities. The real victims of that distortion are not in Washington's think tanks or on cable news. They are the Nigerians, Muslim and Christian alike, who must live with the consequences. This is from Philip Van Niekerk, who is the managing partner of Calabar Consulting, a risk consulting company specializing in Africa. I read a lot of what he wrote because I think it's a very, very important article. But let me say something before we go on. I'll go on to express some of the things that he said. Number one is the fact that it is going to be very false for anybody to claim that there is no killings on a very massive scale, especially in the northern part of the country. It would be a lie to say that that is not happening. Well, here's the real issue. I've been saying it, and I know that it doesn't sound very cool, and some people don't like me saying it, but it's the truth. And here it is the truth. What is happening in the north, which has been happening for a while, is terrible. And I said the other day that I actually went to Southern Kaduna some years ago and had conversations with some people, all of us Christians. And I said, if we really look at what is going on, do you really think this is Christian versus Muslim? With everything you have said, because they're the ones living through it. And what I took out of that event, or of my visit, which I've been saying since I went there, is that it's not really a religious issue. It's an ethnic issue. I mean, there are other things, apparently, but it's more ethnic than religious. But here's the thing about the Middle Belt. Unlike the Southwest, where I'm from, where we have the Yoruba people dominating the entire region, the Middle Belt is made up of several small ethnic groups. They are very small. They are ethnic groups of about less than 2 million people, about 3 million. Not that many, right? When they shout, you don't even hear what they're saying. Not because you don't want to hear, but maybe it's not loud enough, because it's not been amplified enough, because the ethnic group is not as big as the big three, like the Yoruba or the Hausa Fulani or the Igbos. They are not as big. So you may not hear what they're saying. But apart from the ethnic identity, there's something they have that will force you to listen. Where they stop being small and they suddenly become huge. That thing is their faith. That thing is their religion. In other words, as ethnic, although the issue they are going through is more, I'm not saying there's no religious part of it. I'm just saying it's more ethnic than it's religion. But you're not going to take cognizance of it because it's not loud enough and you don't even care as much. And this is the truth. They've been through stuff, and for the most part, people didn't even know what was going on. I gave an example the other day. In Southern Kaduna, there's a group called Adara. A very, very small ethnic group. They went through the worst thing a few years ago. Most people did not even know. They were making videos and, of the death. But you see, once they say they are killing Christians, now you have to listen. Because it's not just an ethnic group. Because when I mentioned Adara here the other day, nobody on this platform had heard of that name. I think one person, just one other person apart from myself, had heard of the name. Most people did not even know there was any group called Adara. And it's not your fault. We have over 300. If you go to the Middle Belt, in some places you have like 30. In Taraba, for instance. It's not like Southwest where we're all Yoruba. Some people in one state, in one local government, you might have more than 10 ethnic groups. They're very small. But so when they're going through stuff and they're talking, you don't really hear it. And it's a shame. But the only way to make their voices heard is to hold on to an identity that is actually bigger than the ethnicity, which is their faith. Is it true that Christians are being killed? Yes. Are they all being killed because they're Christians? Not exactly. And I've had these conversations with people, not one person, with people from the Middle Belt, and we kind of have the same understanding of what's happening. It's a strategy that makes sense. And I remember saying during the last election, when Pastor Edeche was saying the things he was saying, people were angry. I was like, I don't like the rhetoric, but I understand it. It's from Benue State, right? They are experiencing the death. He sees this thing happening. It's from there. It's the way it's going to feel about it will be different from the way I would feel about it. Although I don't like the rhetoric, but I understand where it's coming from. It's the same thing with this thing. It's not Christian versus Muslim, but I understand why it has to be painted as Christian, because that's the way to get the stuff across to the entire world. Like, something is happening here, you guys see what's happening. So they have to latch on to something that is bigger than the numbers, which is what they had in the ethnicities. So this is why it became like a Christian, Muslim and Christian. And I'm saying this to say that there are some people who, in trying to say that it's not like it's a religious war, they also miss this fact that people are being killed. In different states across the Middle Belt, especially. Forget these clowns that are making noise, pushing an agenda in Washington. We'll talk about them in a bit. But the real people that actually have the issue, the real people that folks in the Middle Belt, and they have a legitimate basis for what they're talking about. People are being killed. However, the killings are usually happening because of land. There's no Christian land in that place. Nigeria has no Christian land or Muslim land. Nigeria has ancestral lands. Think about it for a second. People don't want your land because you're a religious clinic. They want that place for whatever reason, and you know why they would want the land. It's about the space. And some of this thing goes before Nigeria's independence, so goes back before Nigeria independence. Like, things have been happening in that regard, right? There are people, for instance, who can tell you of wars fought by their fathers in the Middle Belt more than 100 years ago, 150 years ago. It's beyond the faith thing, but faith will help amplify their concerns, amplify their cries, and find the word will see what's going on. But it's true. And this is the issue. Please listen attentively. Don't misquote me in case somebody wants to quote what I want to say. If those people were animists, if they were traditional worshippers, they would still have been killed. Do you understand? If the folks in the Middle Belt were traditional worshippers, they would still have been killed. Because that land is not about religion, it's about the space. It's about people that are going after what they possess. But it just so happens that the people who are there right now are Christians. And the way to get their grievances out to the world is by saying it's, and it is right. But we must be very careful not to now have this simplistic understanding of what's going on, like it's Christian versus Muslim, because the Muslims killing those Christians are also killing some other Muslims in the same area. Now, those two things are not mutually exclusive, and to understand one does not cancel the other, and to acknowledge one does not cancel the other. To say, oh, they're only killing Muslims, does not mean they're not killing Christians. They're killing Christians, does not mean they're just Muslim versus Christian. And an American will see things like that based on two reasons. Number one, their own politics. All right, they're having, their own domestic issue. They interpret the world through the prism of their domestic issues. That's America. We know that. We know. Give some people maps now. Tell them to look for Australia. They'll be somewhere around Morocco. That's the kind of, we know, like, nothing happening outside the world really means much, unless of course it comes to what they're really concerned about. So that is there. Number two is what this man referred to. I'm going to read some to you. Then we'll now listen to some things. The man said this, and I think that it's important to take note of it. By the way, someone said earlier that this shows that the Nigerian government has failed. Of course, they're not doing the best as far as security is concerned. They're not doing the best. Maybe they're doing their best, but it's definitely not the best. There's a lot more that the government can do. And I don't think the government is saying that, oh, we've been doing a fantastic job. It's just that at the end lagoon no, they're not saying that. They're not saying that everything is perfect. It's like talking about school shootings in America. Does that mean that because of school shootings there's no security in America and the government is doing nothing? It's quite funny that when we talk about school shootings in America, everybody seems to understand. It's quite interesting. Quite interesting. All right. Well, good. It says here, Trump's eruption is a culmination of a years-long lobbying campaign in Washington by Biafran separatists who have cleverly repackaged the secessionist grievance as a struggle to save persecuted Christians. Since 2019, Biafran groups have declared more than $1 million on lobbying in Washington through Mercury Public Affairs, BW Global Group, and Daniel Golden. 1 second. Somebody says, so Pastor Neche should be lying and you are defending that. Silverly Africa Socialist King. I pray that whatever is wrong with you be healed. Because some of us, this is the problem in Nigeria sometimes. Some of you sit in the comfort of your homes and you just pontificate. Have you been to the Middle Belt? This is the problem with supporting Kini blindly. What do you mean he's lying? How is he lying? Were his people not killed? Were folks in Benue said not? Were they not being killed? Did you not see those videos? Did you? Even if you didn't visit, let's assume maybe you are not around. Even if you did not visit, are you saying you didn't see that happen? See, there are two ways to these things. There are people who are pushing a false narrative. We are going to acknowledge the truth of what is happening. And again, there's this thing that Nigerians have to do, to be honest. We have to be able to compartmentalize. Like, people discuss politics in a very simplistic way. It's too pedestrian. If it's this, it cannot be this. It can be this and this. It's social sciences. It's not a pure science where if you mix chemical, you get something. You might get something else. 1 + 1 can be 11. And I'm going to go to the other one that I think you like. But let's first talk about the fact that if people from the Middle Belt are crying out, they are using Christianity because that's what to make people hear them. And what they are going through is real. Stop reducing it to they are lying. What do you mean they are lying? The person that his family member was killed, you are saying they are lying. It doesn't mean the other part is not true. The other part will get to at that moment. No. There are like 3 conversations in this. I mean, at least 3. Number 1 is that people are being killed. And that the ones who are shouting the most are the Christians being killed. Although they're not necessarily being killed for their faith, but they are Christians and they are being killed. Number 2, the people killing them are also killing Muslims. But the Muslims have not used that one to shout in the world out, they are killing Muslims. And that's why the Christian rhetoric is louder. And it has to be louder because that's the only thing those other groups have in order to get their voices heard. Neither of these two things are mutually exclusive. It's not like if I believe this one, I can't believe this one. Let's be careful. Let's have compassion on those who are also losing their lives, so that we don't assume like I just want to be right. I just want to get my argument across. I want to win an argument. I don't really care. It's just they're also killing Muslims. So, if for instance you lose money now, maybe in the stock market, you lose money, and then you're feeling bad about it. Then someone comes to you, and then the person tells you, they also lost money last year. Would that do anything to you in that moment? Person doesn't really care whether you lost money. Just like, I also lost money in the stock market in 1995. Kilo come. So the point is, acknowledge that and know. Like I said earlier when I was talking about Pastor Neche, even though to me it makes no sense. There's no reason you shouldn't have Muslim tickets in Nigeria. Why can't you? If you have no Muslim ticket in this country, that means there would never be a Muslim president from Yoruba land. It's just what it is. We can discuss the details of that later. But the man who says no Muslim ticket, I get why he's saying it, even though I don't agree with him. And that is what he's saying from a perspective of what they are going through in his village. Is not a lie. Don't say it's a lie. It's also disrespectful to him. Just imagine he tell you that what you are also saying is a lie. Anyway, so we've acknowledged those two things. The third part So the first part is that people are being killed in the north, and they are mostly Christians, or the ones who are allowed this now, thank God they have been heard, are Christians. There are Muslims also being killed in the same north by the same group of people. Number three, there's another group that lives very far away from the Middle Belt, very far away from the action place. Someone says, I'm fond of saying I'll discuss something later. I can't say everything at the same time. Just focus on the matter. There's a group of people living far away from the hotspot though. That group is now using the events happening miles away from home to push an agenda that will suit their own narrative. And they're not very smart. They put out videos yesterday. I don't know how dumb you can be. The person only announced that they were beginning calling a CPC. Nigeria is country of particular concern. And all of you moved out making videos and saying that you are the ones who have been pushing this thing for years. If you think I'm lying, just hold on. I'll read to you. Let me first read this one from the article I read earlier. It says, Trump's eruption is a culmination of a years-long lobbying campaign in Washington by Biafran separatists. The issue is not happening in Biafra. In fact, there's no Biafra. Let's stop all this kidding. There's nothing. It's not happening in Iboland. But they have used what's happening in the Middle Belt to push a narrative, even though their leader says it was a Jew. He says he went to Israel, now putting on a shawl. I think he went to the Western world. He says he's a Judaist or Jew, but suddenly, because of what's happening elsewhere, they have to plug into that and say, hey, the people that are saying it's happening here too. Christians are being killed. How do I know? Stay with me. Trump's eruption is a culmination of a years-long lobbying campaign in Washington by Biafran separatists who have cleverly repackaged their secessionist grievance as a struggle to save persecuted Christians. Since 2019, Biafran groups have declared more than $1 million on lobbying in Washington through Mercury Public Affairs, that's number 1, BW Global Group, number 2, and Daniel Goldin, number 3. Oh, you probably won't believe this because you're a thinking person, or we are thinking people. So you're like, kò possible kí àwọn ṣe nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀ kó wá sọ pé òun lòun ṣe tí ò tí pé something up to 48 hours is a declaration of CPC. Anyway, if in case you are doubting what I'm saying, let me play you something and then I'll explain. Oh, good. In fact, before I play, I think I should read something first. Oh, Michelle. Let's play it first. Listen to this and see how wonderfully interesting this is. Take a listen, please.
Thank you, President Trump! Yeah! You did it.
Putting
We love you.
control of CPC.
Yes. Yes.
Make it happen. The best president in the whole wide world.
Yes.
God bless you, Trump.
God bless you, Trump.
Good. More to come. More to come.
Yes. President Trump! Yeah! You did it.
Putting
We love you.
control of CPC.
Yes. Yes.
Make it happen. The best president in the whole wide world.
Yes.
God bless you, Trump.
God bless you, Trump.
Good. More to come. More to come.
Yes.
Let's say that you want something, right? And then President Donald Trump has taken the first step. Let's assume he's doing it for you. He has taken the first step by declaring Nigeria a country of particular concern. Now, if you're a thinking person, which I don't think a lot of these people are, if you're a thinking person, the question should be, you know that it's a marathon and that what you just have is a milestone, not the destination. Therefore, if you had sense, you'll still be hiding and cooking strategically. But, will I say, we're expecting too much. Let me read some of the things that they put out there. In fact, one of this group is called American Veterans of Igbo Descent, and they put out this statement. Dear President, these are the people. Dear President Donald Trump, God bless you for standing up for the amazing people of our beloved Nigeria and for righteousness around the world. We are avid American veterans of Igbo descent, native Nigerians, now loyal Americans who served proudly in the United States military. We know the terrain in Nigeria. We know the terrain in Nigeria. We were trained to the best standards of the United States military. We know the people. We know the issues. Sir, we are ready for action. Let us help. We are here. We are. Send us. They are called AVID, American Veterans of Igbo Descent. Does this in any way remind you of ABN in 1993? Association for Better Nigeria. Here we are, send us. You know the terrain. To do what? To invade Nigeria. Because of what? Because you want Biafra. If you really want Biafra, what's the way to get in Biafra? See, the way to get Biafra is one of the... I see someone in the comment section say, why not just let them go? Nobody is holding Igbos back. If they really want to leave, the question should be asked, and by the way, if you are Yoruba, don't ask questions like this. Want to get here? Want to get to her? When people say things, let them go. Who is holding anybody? There's a process. If you want to see, until a representative of the people from the Southeast says this thing in the parliament, I don't think they are serious. Somebody has to say, a representative in parliament should say it. And what do? Now they're working on constitutional amendment. Want this new place. You ask for referendum to be included in the constitution. You trigger that clause. I mean, you, number one, have that clause included. Don't forget that 1954, it was your representative that said there must be no inclusion of secession clause. 1954. You have been crying about it since 1963 now. That's okay. So what you need to do is now get another representative to push for that in parliament. Once they get it, it's referendum, and then people will vote. And if you want to leave, you leave. It might take a year or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, depending on how fast they push it. But no, you are telling Oyinbo, here we are, send us. We are ready for action. Some people don't have the gifts or strategy. Anyway, let me read a few things. One of the people who stood with the gentleman who was here in Nigeria a while back, former mayor of one of the towns in Texas. He was one of the people here in this video where they're saying, yes, take over the nation, we are best president. Anyway, one of them is Kanunta Kanu. He says, I sincerely want to thank Mike Arnold. That was the man I was talking about, ex-mayor of Texas. It wasn't mayor of Texas, it was mayor of one town in Texas. And Senator Ted Cruz, and so on. Come these groups: American Veterans of Igbo Descent, AVID, Ambassadors for Self-Determination and Rising Sun Foundation. That's the one that what's the name of this guy? What's the name of this guy that's in detention? I was telling them to go and collect money for him. Kanu. That's one he was talking to. Anyway, Ambassadors for Self-Determination for Rising Sun Foundation, for the outstanding job they have done and are still doing, which has prompted the American president to react to the Christian genocide long going on in Nigeria. 30th October 2025, picture men celebrating the dissolution of Nigerian state as a country of particular concern. Is that group, the AVID USA? Number one, you will fail. But number two, the reason you also fail is because I don't think people are gifted to do some things. Let's even assume you are doing this. Why not just you bá sọ pé tí iṣu ẹyin bá ta kí wọn fọwọ́ bò àwọn àgbààgbà pé o wọ́n gbọ́n o àwọn àgbààgbà yẹn gbọ́n Yorùbá dẹ̀ pé lédè tí iṣu ẹyin bá ta ká fọwọ́ bò jẹ. Ẹni yóò go tí ta, it's just beginning to ta. How do I say that in English? So we have a proverb in Yoruba land. Say you're roasting your yam and it's working, right? Your yam it's cooking. There is a system, you eat it in a way that, you have to protect what it is that you have. Say, we are the ones that did it. What did you do? Is your goal to get President to call Nigeria CPC, or your goal to have your own nation. And how do we know this? From things like this. The avid guys. That's why people are living abroad all these years. They've lived abroad. They've gone to school. They have degrees, but it's still the same mindset. At this rate, it's congenital. Anyway, while we're still reading that to try and understand what's in this up, some of the representatives, especially in the US, began to put out some things that led us to realize exactly what this is about. One of them, his name is Gunther Fellinger-Jan. He says, I call the EU to recognize the Biafra Republic emerging out of failed ex-Nigeria and remind the free world that we failed Biafra in 1967 to 1970 during the liberation war to our eternal shame. We must make up for our failure and endorse Biafra Republic now. Was this what the Christian genocide thing was about? It wasn't about the Middle Belt. It wasn't about the people being displaced. How did it become about Biafra? Another one says, the indigenous people of Biafra, led by the unlawfully incarcerated Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, are victims of the Nigerian government's support for Islamic jihadists. So the reason they incarcerated Nnamdi Kanu is because he's a Christian. Wow. Anyway, in case you are wondering where I got that from, let me read the full letter from the same group, Avid. You guys need to be smarter than this. November 2nd. You can't pull something like this out. It's so early. Who advises these people? Anyway, let me read to you what they wrote here. American veterans of Igbo descent. The White House, November 2nd, 2025, the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. Dear President Donald Trump, the American veterans of Igbo descent sincerely and warmly welcome the recent designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern, CPC, by your administration. We want to express our deep gratitude for this action, which offers renewed courage to Christians in Nigeria to continue practicing their religion. The whistleblower behind this genocidal act is Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, who prophesied the killing of Christians by the terrorist groups sponsored by the government years ago. Mr. Kanu is still detained illegally in solitary confinement over 4 years without charges. Without charges. Prophesied. We are ready and willing to assist in any efforts aimed at the liberation and protection of Christians in Nigeria. God bless President Trump and God bless the United States of America. Wow. Our children should not write letters like this. It's too early. It won't even work, sir. You guys, you are the same. When it comes to strategy, I mean, there will be people who are not there are exceptions, but again, exceptions prove the rule. Jesus is Lord. You're saying Nnamdi Kanu is there because a whistleblower. Whistleblowing for who? Is he a hunter? I'll be an hunter then. So, the point I'm trying to make is a lot of things are coming out now, making it very clear that this whole thing was not about the Middle Belt. And that's what's painful. Because like I said, they need help. Nigeria needs help, particularly in the Middle Belt. Let's not joke around. Nigeria needs help, particularly in the Middle Belt, in the North. And people are being killed, and many of them are Christians. It is true. So if that's what we're really talking about, maybe it makes sense. But apparently some people who have nothing to do with the Middle Belt, whose governors are saying that they are the ones killing themselves, and that if you go to the forest, you will have Emmanuel and Peter, that they're all Christians. And by the way, that's Governor Soludo, not me.